I met another woman, 61 years old, named Pauline Beck, works as a home care worker in Oakland, California. And I went with her because the union she's with, Service Employees International Union, organized, SEIU's in the house, organized each presidential candidate to walk in the shoes of one of their members for a day. And so I went to the house of an 86-year-old amputee who Miss Beck looks after every day. And I did what she did every day, what she does every day. Help him out of bed and put him into a wheelchair, help him get dressed, fix him breakfast, clean the house, do the laundry. And my wife, by the way, couldn't believe it when she heard about this. I had to show her video of me doing some work around the house. But listening to Pauline Beck talk about the hardships of her life, without a trace of self-pity, glad she could be of service to somebody, but also just hoping that maybe she could get a little more pay to help support 2 foster kids that she's taken into her home. Hoping that maybe she could have a little more security in her retirement, or could have a day off once in a while, because she can't afford to take a day off right now. You know, I was reminded of what the American people are about. There are millions of people like Pauline Beck all across this country, working hard. And they don't expect government to solve all their problems. They don't want them to. The American people are self-reliant. They are independent. They are proud. And they are willing to work hard for their piece of the American dream. But what they do hope is that government will listen to them. All those guys who've been laid off because the plant closed here in Pennsylvania, and suddenly they don't have a job, they don't have a pension, they don't have health care. They're not looking for a handout. They just want to work and support a family. And they don't feel like anybody's listening to them. Those folks who are now at risk of losing their home because nobody was regulating the mortgage lending industry, and predatory loans and deceptive practices were out there. And nobody was overseeing them because the mortgage lending industry spent $185 million lobbying against tighter regulation. They don't want a handout from government. They just want somebody who's looking out for them. That's what is at stake in this election. I admire Senator Clinton. She is an intelligent and dedicated public servant. But in the debates over the last year, the major difference that I have with her is she thinks that it's okay how things work in Washington. Her basic argument is we just need to change political parties. But you know what? We've been talking about health care reform for decades now through Democratic and Republican administrations. And the drug and the insurance companies have spent $1 billion over the last decade preventing change from happening. Just because we have Democrat in the White House doesn't mean that things are going to change. We've been talking about energy independence for decades now. And the only thing that's changed is gas prices have gone up and ExxonMobil's making $11 billion per quarter. And you are struggling to fill up your gas tank. It's not enough just to change political parties in the White House. We've got to change how politics is done in this country, how politics is done in Washington. That's why I'm running for President of the United States. But if we're going to shake up Washington, I can't do it by myself. You have to participate. You've got to be involved. You've got to believe that change can happen. And the cynics will tell you it can't. You know, Senator Clinton teases me about, he's always talking about hope and this and that. There's a cynicism in Washington that is fed constantly to the American people that says, this is how it is. We're always going to be bickering. We're always going to be fighting. The lobbyists will always have control. Money will always dominate our political debate. You've got to believe something different if change is going to happen. That's what this campaign has been about. Because if you believe in change, then we can go ahead and tell the lobbyists and the special interests their days of setting the agenda in Washington are over, because they haven't funded my campaign. I don't take PAC money. I don't take lobbyist money. You funded my campaign. They won't run my White House. I'll be accountable to you. They won't drown out the voices of the American people when I'm President of the United States of America. If you're ready for change, we can stop talking about the outrage of 47 million people without health insurance and start doing something about it. This is personal for me. My mother died of cancer when she was 53 years old. And I remember that was hard enough, but watching her reading insurance forms in her hospital bed because she had just gotten a new job and the insurance company was saying, maybe there's a pre-existing condition. Maybe we don't have to reimburse you. I remember the worry on her face. That's what I think about when I think about health care. And that's why I've put forward a plan that says every American is going to get health care that is at least as good as the health care I have as a member of Congress. If you've already got health insurance, we're going to lower your premiums by $2,500 per family per year. If you don't have health insurance, you can buy into a government plan. There won't be any exclusions for pre-existing conditions. We're going to emphasize prevention and primary care so that we have a health care system instead of a disease care system. And we are going to make sure that we are negotiating for the cheapest available price on drugs so that senior citizens aren't having to take half a dose of medicine instead of the full dose because that's all they can afford. And we are going to make these changes not 20 years from now, not 10 years from now. We're going to do it by the end of my first term as President of the United States of America. If you're ready for change, then we can restore a sense of economic fairness to this economy. You know, America's always been at its best when everybody shares in prosperity. It's not just for the few, it's for the many. When we build a broad, strong middle class. When people who are willing to work hard get paid a living wage. And that economy has been out of balance. I believe in the free market. I believe in capitalism. I believe in entrepreneurship. But when you've got CEOs making more in 10 minutes than ordinary workers are making in an entire year, and the CEO gets a tax break and the worker gets nothing, and if the company goes belly up, the CEO gets a golden parachute or a bonus, and the worker gets his pension dumped, something is wrong. Something has to change. We have to restore a sense of fairness to our economy. And that's why I've promised we are going to stop giving tax breaks to companies that ship jobs overseas. We're going to save those tax breaks for companies that are investing right here in Pennsylvania and right here in America. We're going to make sure that our trade agreements have labor standards and environmental standards and safety standards so that companies aren't just moving overseas and sending goods back here that may be unsafe for consumers and are undercutting U.S. workers. We're going to make sure that we're investing in infrastructure in this country. You know, we are spending $10 billion a month in a rut. $10 billion a month. Imagine if we were spending $10 billion right here in the United States of America, rebuilding roads, rebuilding schools, rebuilding bridges, laying broadband lines, putting Americans back to work. That is what we should be doing. That's what we will do when I'm President of the United States of America. We're going to roll back Bush tax cuts on the top 1% and give tax cuts to the middle 70, 80, 90% who need them. I've already said people who are making $75,000 a year or less, you should get a tax break, $1,000 to offset your payroll tax. Senior citizens who are making less than $50,000 shouldn't have to pay income tax on their Social Security. They're already struggling on fixed incomes. I meet them all the time. It ain't right. Sometimes things aren't right, and sometimes it just ain't right. And we're going to make it right. And I won't just raise the minimum wage every year. or every 10 years, I want to raise the minimum wage to keep pace with inflation, because if you work in this country, you should not be poor, and that is a goal that I am going to set when I'm President of the United States of America.